Hi, my name's Charlie Roadhouse. I'm a third year PhD student at Manchester Metropolitan University, and today I'm going to be talking about the future of automated check-worthiness detection. So before we look at check-worthiness, we need to understand the problem behind fact-checking. Misinformation and disinformation are produced at a rate that fact-checkers are unable to keep up with. They have to make the tough choice about where to focus their energy. This decision-making process is called check-worthiness. It's the gatekeeper for the entire fact-checking process. Unfortunately though, check-worthiness is unable to scale due to the overwhelming amount of data and the time it takes to make the decision. That decision is made by breaking down check-worthiness into two main questions. The first question is, can this claim be checked? Here, we look to filter out opinions, personal stories and statements that are purely subjective, and then identify objective claims where we can gather evidence. The second question is a crucial one, which is, should the claim be checked? Here we look to see if the claim contains any of the following, such as potential for harm, public interest, the source of the claim itself, how timely and how topical the claim is. Using this on top of the practitioner's world context, they come to some sort of conclusion about whether they should or shouldn't check that claim. The issue is that the current check-worthiness process is slow, and this has therefore led to the development of AI models. Models where data from a news source, social media, or even a speech are input into the model, and then a decision is made on whether the claim should be checked. This decision is usually done through either a classification label or a ranked list of claims. We've now seen real-world deployment of these models, such as Claimbuster, which provides a clear pathway on how we should be deploying and developing these models for the future. Despite progress with these AI systems though, they still have foundational flaws, which are not only restricting the model's full capability, but also providing a barrier to entry for practitioners. I want to break these down into the limitations into four main categories. First, we have the category of the data and the reactivity of the system. Systems are currently very reactive in that they require a claim to proliferate through a social media network before they can be identified. They are also usually developed in a black box setting, meaning that they're unable to provide any justification for why the model has made that decision. They also lack any generalizability and usually perform poorly across multiple topics. For example, a model might perform well on COVID-19 data, but would perform then poorly on the US 2024 election data. And finally, the way that we've framed the task of check-worthiness, it being framed as either a binary classification or a simple ranking, might ignore some of the nuanced impact and context around the task. So how do we fix this? It's not about making the models more accurate. It requires a fundamental paradigm shift. We need to build future systems on three new pillars. We must move from being reactive to being a proactive system. We must move from the opaque models to transparent ones, and we must build more robust and general purpose models for future work. The first pillar is about becoming a proactive model. Right now, fact-checking models are reactive. A claim has to get traction online before it can appear on a fact-checker's radar. With developments in social media prediction, by using things like the content itself, it provides a pathway for us to be able to use this content at first approach to actually predict how far a post might spread and use that as an early indicator to provide an early warning system to practitioners. The second pillar is of transparency. We can't ask journalists to rely on a tool that simply highlight claims that should be checked without having any sort of explanation and justification for why. The future of these systems depends on the integration of explainable AI. The models must be able to justify their reasoning in a way that is understandable and helpful for a human expert. Current methodologies use things like SHAP analysis, where we highlight key words that the model uses to make the decision. Though people have argued that this isn't a full explanation, a potential approach for future would be to actually provide specific training for practitioners to understand how these keywords are actually used as an onset early explanation. Finally, the third pillar is around the robustness and adaptability. An information environment is constantly evolving, and our models need to evolve with them. This means moving towards continuous learning strategies where models are regularly updated, or moving to a use of a general purpose model. At the moment, models are trained on a certain subset of data and then may perform well in that subset, but then when provided to another topic would show low performance. This means that the model isn't able to actually generalize well and might give some sort of false efficacy about how effective the model is. Another key point is that as these models are being deployed to use on social media, it's more likely that malicious actors will try to work around this, creating adversarial attempts where they change the text to essentially fly under the radar of the model but still have that harmful content in. So being able to adversarially train our models to ensure that we can find this is something that is very key. And finally, the current labeling approach that we use in our models, for example, if we use a binary setting, usually is quite simplistic, and instead check-worthiness is more nuanced than just yes and no. Future attempts of work should look to reframe this task. There's already been some examples of this work being done through fine-grained labels where we instead assess check-worthiness based on maybe 3, 5, 6 labels, such as the potential for harm. Being able to do something like this in a more large-scale environment will not only help us understand different types of claims, but also understand the nuanced factors that make up check-worthiness more empirically. Finally, as we develop these powerful tools, we must address this serious ethical considerations. If we automate the process of flagging content, we risk creating automated gatekeepers that could not only suppress certain voices, but could also amplify existing societal bias. Perhaps most importantly, we need a clear framework for accountability. When a system fails, who is responsible? Is it going to be the developer, the platform, or the fact-checker themselves? These questions must be central to the development process and not an afterthought for any future models. In conclusion, simply chasing a higher accuracy isn't going to solve the problems automated check-worthiness is facing. The path forward for check-worthiness detection requires a complete rethinking of our approach. We need to build systems that are proactive, transparent, adaptive, robust, and generalizable. Tools designed to augment human expertise, not replace them. This is a significant challenge though. It requires a renewed commitment to collaboration between social media platforms, fact-checkers, and researchers. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, or if you want to talk about collaboration or any future work, my email is on the screen now. Thank you.